Imagine a ball of yarn. Just a simple, rough ball of cheap wool rolling across the ground. It is tumbling over black rocks, snagging on moss, picking up speed. It looks innocent. But in the story we are about to tell, that ball of yarn is not a toy. It is a trap. And it is the only reason the ghost of a furious woman isn't currently tearing this place apart, right under your feet. Welcome to the edge. We are standing on the absolute southwestern lip of Iceland. The coordinates are just numbers for a map, but the reality beneath your boots is the prow of a ship made of lava, smashing directly into the North Atlantic. This is the Terminal Rift. And yes, across the road, the lighthouse and the cliffs are doing their own violent little opera. That is a separate tragedy for a separate tape. This time, we stay with the ground. This is not scenery. Scenery is passive. Scenery sits there and lets you take a picture. This landscape is an antagonist. It is actively trying to dissolve your boots, corrode your camera gear, haze your lenses, and if you are not careful, boil the skin right off your bones. The travel brochures will lazily call this place moon-like. That is an insult to this place. The moon is dead. This place is violently, toxically alive. It is a collision zone where the mid-Atlantic ridge, that immense submarine mountain range that splits the planet in half, decides to breach the ocean and become land. You are standing on a seam where the earth is tearing itself apart. The crust beneath your feet here is terrifyingly thin, on the order of 15 to 20 kilometers of rock separating you from deep heat. In geological terms, that is not a floor. That is a wet paper towel. And because that floor is so thin, the heat doesn't just radiate, it punches through. The result is a landscape that I can only describe as beautifully toxic. Those deep, bruising reds in the soil are iron under chemical assault. The neon yellows that look like an industrial accident? Sulfur. And that soft, luminous green blanket covering the sharp lava? Moss. It looks soft. It begs to be touched. But underneath, the rock is jagged glass that will shred hiking pants. It is a visual lie. And then there is the wind. In the summer, the wind here is annoying. It whips hair and ruins audio recordings. But in the winter, the wind here is a personal assault. It doesn't just blow, it screams. It hits with the kinetic force of a car crash. I have seen rental car doors ripped off their hinges here because a tourist thought they could just hop out for a photo. The wind took the door, bent it backward against the fender, and laughed. You are exposed to the full fetch of the Atlantic. There is nothing between you and Antarctica but thousands of miles of angry, gray water. The salt spray mixes with geothermal steam to create an atmosphere that tastes like brine and battery acid. And that brings us to the central paradox of this place. The industrial ghost story. On the horizon, in one direction, sits the Reykjanes power plant. It is a cathedral of stainless steel and high-voltage lines, a triumph of modern engineering extracting power from the ground. It is clean, precise, and humming with the future. A slight shift in attention reveals Gunnuhver, a boiling, screaming mud pot that smells like hell's kitchen. It is primitive, chaotic, and uncontrollable. These two realities do not blend, they collide. The same deep heat that feeds the turbines of the power plant is the same heat that, according to local legend, is the prison for a human soul. You are looking at a hyper-modern technological society perched precariously on top of a primitive, superstitious nightmare. And this is not ancient history. This peninsula is not a museum. It is an active system. The plumbing beneath our feet reroutes itself on its own schedule, and it has a long history of reminding humans that they are guests. You smelled it before you even arrived, didn't you? The classic rotten egg signature of hydrogen sulfide, the perfume of the underworld. But as you get closer to the mud pots, the scent changes. It gets sharper. It starts to taste metallic in the back of the throat. That is the taste of the mountain dissolving. Gunnuhver is geologically unusual. Most geysers in Iceland, like the famous geyser in the Golden Circle, are freshwater systems. They run on rain. But here, the rock is so fractured, so broken by tectonic spreading, that the ocean leaks in. The fluids circulating below are heavily seawater influenced, brine rather than rainwater. When that brine hits this kind of heat, the chemistry shifts. It becomes acidic. The steam rising out of that vent is not a gentle spa fog. It is an acid-laced plume. It attacks hard basalt and breaks it down into a soft gray clay called kaolinite. The mud bubbling in that pot isn't just dirt and water. It is the liquefied body of the lava field. And it roars. It doesn't hiss. It doesn't splash. It roars. It sounds like a jet engine idling on the tarmac, waiting for clearance to take off. That is massive pressure forcing steam through a heavy cap of clay. It is white noise so loud it drowns out thought. And this is where the tourists get into trouble. They see mud and they think spa day. Then the ground reminds them what 100 degrees Celsius feels like. Just below that crust, the clay is unstable. Steps off the wooden walkway result in boiling, not sinking. The footprints left in the clay are considered vandalism, but the mud will erase them anyway in a few hours, along with the skin on the ankles. And it's not just ankles at risk. This place is hostile to glass. The plume carries mineral grit and acidic aerosols that can haze camera lenses and damage coatings, including the anti-reflective coatings on eyeglasses. If a lens fogs up, wiping it is a mistake. You're not cleaning it, you're sanding it. And deep inside that roar, if you listen to the folklore, is the voice of Gunna. Her name was Gudrun Onundardottir. She wasn't a witch. She wasn't a sorceress. She was something much more dangerous. She was poor. And she was angry. This was the beginning 1700s, a time of feudal cruelty. Gunna was a tenant farmer living in poverty on a farm called Kirkjubol. She owed rent to the local sheriff, a man named Viljolmur Jonsson. When she couldn't pay, he didn't evict her. He took the only thing she owned that had any value, her metal cooking pot. In the old times, metal pots were rare and extremely expensive. Imagine that, taking the cooking pot from a starving woman. That is a special kind of petty evil. Gunna was furious. She went on a hunger strike, or perhaps she simply starved. History is blurry on the logistics, but perfectly clear on the rage. She died, but she refused to leave. At her funeral, the pallbearers noticed the coffin felt suspiciously light, as if the spirit had already jumped ship. The next day, The sheriff's body was found on the heath. Blue, bruised, every bone broken. Gunna didn't stop there. She went on a rampage. She terrorized the peninsula. She killed livestock. She drove people mad. She laid siege to the region. The locals were terrified. The land itself had turned against them. So they called a priest named Eiríkur from Vogsosar. He was a power poet, a sorcerer priest who knew how to handle the undead. He knew he couldn't banish her, so he gave the locals a trap. He gave them a ball of rolling yarn. He told them to give the loose end to Gunna. The moment she grabbed it, the ball began to roll. And because she was a spirit bound by compulsion, she had to chase it. The ball rolled across the lava, over the moss, and tumbled directly into the boiling mud pool. Gunna followed it down. And that is where she is today. Trapped in the boiling clay, thrashing against the walls of the vent. On stormy nights, locals say you can see her gripping the rim of the pit, trying to pull herself out. The view is unforgettable. Just don't accept any knitting supplies from strangers. This combination of horror and geology is why film crews love this place. Not because it's pretty, because it's accusatory. Black Mirror filmed the episode Crocodile in this landscape. They needed a world that looked like guilt. They didn't have to build one. It was already here. If you close your eyes for a moment, drivers, stay with us. The vibration comes through the soles of your boots, the smell of rotten eggs, the taste of metal in the air. Take one last look at the steam rising from the mud pot. Listen to the roar. Somewhere down there, in the boiling dark, that ball of yarn is still rolling, unraveling, snagging on the heat, and Gunna is still chasing it, round and round, in the eternal burning dark. Don't let the thread break.
Gunnar's poetic obsession with a rolling ball of yarn is charming, really. Very folkloric, very atmospheric. Very useful if your survival plan involves waiting in a sulfur cloud for a ghost to hand you a knitting project. The yarn was never a souvenir. It was a leash for the desperate, dragged through a landscape already swallowing common sense. If you want the structure beneath the legend, the acid steam, fractured crust, and pressure refusing to behave like scenery, subscribe, like, and share this broadcast right now. Find us on YouTube and every podcast platform where the truth is not softened for Instagram garbage. This is a filter for the curious. Join the ranks. Keep the signal moving. Leave the poetic mist behind and move to IcelandExplained.com. That is our Diagnostic Hub, the place where the unspoken articles live, along with the raw source data, field notes, and vetted gear and services we actually trust when Iceland starts behaving like Iceland. The link in the description is not decoration. It is the fuel for this machine. Support the channel directly, buy us a coffee, pay the sanity tax, and help keep this operation independent. We do not trade in corporate fluff, sponsored delusions, or brochure language polished smooth by people who think danger is a branding opportunity. We trade in excellence, pressure, and uncomfortable clarity. Your support keeps the edges sharp, the signal clean, and the bureaucrats pleasantly unflattered. Your next logical layer runs toward the Blue Lagoon at Svartsengi, where geothermal waste learned to smile for cameras. One place sells serenity. Gunnuhver explains the plumbing. Here are deconstruction of the lagoon before the silica settles into your hair and the marketing settles into your brain. Or turn west through the playlist toward Reykjanesviti, where Elde sits offshore. The white rock where the last breeding pair of great auks became a commission, a corpse, and one crushed egg. Different coastline, same species problem. This is Iceland Explained. We deliver the anatomy beneath the myth. We serve the grit behind the beauty, and we provide the truth behind the steam. A story, not a guide.